Hello and welcome to the Civil Times. Today we'll discuss the editorials of 6th February 2019. These are the articles we'll be covering today, starting with the Hindu. Now this is the op-ed and the editorial page of the Hindu. This article deals with the systemic weakening of the Indian institution, which basically implies the interference of the government in the institution, functioning of the institutions, and the consequent decline in autonomy. We shall not be discussing this article. Because the way she has covered, despite the fact that this issue is pretty important, however, the way she has covered this is not good enough from UPSC perspective. The 2019 election issues, it is not important from UPSC perspective. Risk to global growth, we shall be discussing a series of this and this and this. These editorials we shall be discussing today. Now, first article, this article is a series of unfortunate missteps. Fixing the federal fallout of the Kerala flood relief funding row requires care. The author is basically discussing the differences between the Kerala and the central government, which arose with regard to the state of Kerala's wanting to gain external assistance to rebuild the state of Kerala after the devastating floods of August, and the central government's denial to the state of Kerala for the same. The author is basically saying the differences between the central and the Kerala government over the denial of external assistance to rebuild the state after the devastating floods of August last year surfaced last month. When the Kerala governor's policy speech in the assembly, as well as the states of the Kerala minister at Pravasi Bharatiya Divas in Varanasi. The governor had said that the Kerala government had requested the centre to enhance its borrowing limit to mobilize additional resources for rebuilding the flood-hit state. We are still awaiting a favourable response from the centre. Moreover, Minister K.T. Jalil, who represented Kerala at the Pravasi Bharat conclave, complained that he was not allowed to raise this particular issue in Varanasi at the conclave. Competitive federalism in the context of interaction with foreign countries promoted by PM Modi has proved to be a double-edged sword. Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan now stands accused of violating the rules regarding the seeking of foreign assistance. He remains unclear on how to make up for the shortfall of several crores. The central government is unable to provide the funds, while the Kerala has been stopped in its tracks from seeking sources from abroad, either from the Kerala diaspora or the friendly foreign governments. Now, the present situation in Kerala is a result of a series of errors of judgment and misunderstandings on both sides. Mutual political suspicion, a lack of appreciation of the complexities of the international situation have brought about this confrontation. Now, the diplomatic trajectory. Till 2004, the author has analyzed this and saying India had no qualms about receiving foreign assistance for disaster management till 2004. But when India began to aspire for a permanent membership of the UN Security Council, which was met with a strong resistance, India thought that it could win over the other countries if it was seen to be helping them in emergencies rather than seeking such assistance for itself. The tsunami of 2004 and the threat of piracy in the Indian Ocean provided India an opportunity to test its new posture. The new posture is that India shall not seek foreign assistance for meeting its demands in case of emergencies. Now, everybody was grateful, however, it made no difference to India's claim of permanent membership of the UN Security Council. There were other factors too, which militated against India's claim. The Modi government decided, however, to lay down the rules regarding foreign assistance in order to bring some clarity to the situation. Rules that were notified in 2016 said that India would not solicit any assistance but would receive relief assistance even as cash from individuals, charitable institutions, foundations, etc. If the cash were to be offered bilaterally by foreign governments, the matter shall be considered on a case-to-case basis. Now, the UAE's offer. The saga of the offer by the UAE began well when the PM was informed by the UAE authorities that relief assistance was being put together as a special gesture. The Prime Minister reciprocated with a warm reply of gratitude, but Kerala Chief Minister announcement the UAE would provide 700 crore made on the same day as central government's announcement of a provision of 500 opened a Pandora's box. It appeared as though UAE was more generous than the New Delhi was to Kerala. The central government was not empathetic to Kerala's plight because of political considerations. Moreover, the source of the information was supposed to have been an Indian businessman. An embarrassed UAE government then asked its ambassador in New Delhi to deny that there was any specific order of rupees this much. An immediate consequence was a reluctance by other governments to make The immediate consequence of this was reluctance by the other governments to make any offer of bilateral assistance. When the Thai ambassador in Delhi was stopped from being at a ceremony to hand over a leave cuisine, the world was convinced that India will not seek further resources from outside. It was against this backdrop that Kerala put forward an unwise proposal to dispatch its ministers to seek donations from the external countries. The possibility of loans from the IMF and the World Bank became distant as the center refused to raise the limits on loans from these global organizations that a state government could take. The Sabrimala crisis further eroded the credibility of the state government, and much of the empathy over the flood damage was lost. The Prime Minister has always maintained the marshalling of resources is the responsibility of the Union government according to the Constitution. The only option before Kerala is therefore to demand more funding from the centre to make up for the shortfall. Now, coming to the conclusion, India is a federal state, but unitary in nature when it comes to national security and foreign policy. Individual states may have some advantages in dealing with some countries in the neighborhood, but they will do well not to transgress the thin line when it comes to managing international relations. Now, it will take longer for trust to be established to have competitive federalism work again. Next, timely review. Now, this article talks about the review of the concept of angel tax. Now, this editorial has been written with reference to the government's yesterday's decision. The government's decision to set up a five-member working committee to look into the angel tax issue. Now, what is this angel tax? The angel tax is a tax on the excess capital that has been raised by an unlisted company through the issue of shares over and above the fair market value of these shares. This excess capital that has been raised is treated as an income, and such income is accordingly taxed. It most commonly affects the startups and the angel investors who bank them. Now, what is an angel investor? Now, angel investor is basically an affluent individual who provides capital for a business startup, usually in exchange for a convertible debt or ownership equity. I hope this is clear. Now, problems. Now, what are the basic problems with angel tax? Let us discuss the problems that are associated with angel tax. First of all, there is no definitive or objective way to measure what is the fair market value of shares. Second, investors pay a premium for the idea. The investors are basically paying for a premium for the idea and the business potential at the angel funding stage, whereas the tax officials seem to be assessing the value of startups on their net asset value. Now, several startups say that they find it difficult to justify the higher valuation to tax officials. In a notification in May 2018, the Central Board of Direct Taxes had exempted angel investors from the angel tax if they fulfill certain terms and conditions as specified by the DIPP. Now, what are the proposed reforms? Now, according to the proposed reforms, the committee, which has been set up by the government, will, among other things, consider raising the threshold beyond which new investments into startups will be taxed. They will raise this threshold from rupees 10 crore earlier to rupees 25 crores. It is expected that startups with aggregate paid-up share capital and share premium of less than 25 crores against the previous threshold will not be taxed while attracting new investment. But this will not address the real problem with the angel tax, which has to do with the unbridled power that vests in the hands of the income tax authorities. Therefore, the author is saying that the government should look to withdraw the angel tax and focus instead on building the capability to better identify and rein in illegal wealth. However, it risks killing the nascent startup ecosystem in the country. unedifying episode. Now, this article basically talks about the CBI versus the police tussle that had broken out in West Bengal a few days back. Now, the author is saying it's an ostensibly even-handed intervention in the standoff between the centre and the West Bengal governments over the manner of investigation of the Sharda chit fund case. The Supreme Court has de-escalated political tensions. The police commissioner and the SIT investigating the chit fund had been served a number of notices to appear before the CBI before it sent a team to its house in Kolkata. However, the Mamata Banerjee's response, which included manhandling and detaining of the CBI officials, was shocking and inexcusable. However, in attempting to obstruct the CBI action in a court-ordered investigation, Ms. Banerjee has once again demonstrated that she is prone to taking arguments over administrative procedures to the streets. The show speaks poorly of her political maturity. She is free to read political motives into the actions of the central agency, but she must conduct that fight politically and by heeding her responsibilities as a chief minister. The CBI is saying that there was no proper response to the earlier summons it had sent to the police commissioner and alleges that he could have destroyed evidence that was initially gathered by the SIT when he had supervised the probe in the initial stages. Risks to global growth. Now, instead of restoration to nationalism and unilateral action, the country should strengthen the multilateral framework. Now, this article has been written in line with the release of the World Economic Situation and Prospects for 2019, which illustrates how rising economic, social, and environmental challenges hamper the progress towards the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. The author is saying, on the surface, the world economy remains on a steady trajectory. However, many developed economies are operating close to their full potential with an unemployment rates at historical lows. However, beneath the surface, a worrisome picture of the world economy emerges. Over the past year, trade policy disputes have escalated and financial vulnerabilities have increased, and global liquidity has tightened. Should such a downturn materialize, the prospects are grim. Global private and public debt is at record high, well above the level seen in the run-up to the global financial crisis. Interest remains very low, and developed economies' central bank balance sheets are still bloated. With limited monetary and fiscal space, the policy makers around the globe will struggle to react effectively to an economic downturn. Given waning support for multilateral approaches, even the global growth remains robust, its benefits do not reach the places where they need most. Incomes will stagnate or the growth will only be marginal in parts of Africa, Asia, and Central America. The challenges are most acute in Africa, where the per capita growth has averaged only 0.3% over the past 5 years. Now, given the rapid population growth, the fight against poverty will require faster economic growth and dramatic reductions in income equality. Many of the challenges are global in nature, will require collective and cooperative policy action. Withdrawal into nationalism and unilateral action will only pose further setbacks for the global community, especially for those who are already in the danger of being left far behind. Next, now we come to Indian Express. Again, the highlighted articles we shall be discussing, and most of the articles, it is this budget, blind eye, with an ocean of salt, Ayodhya issue, grand narrative. Now, these are not important. Budget has been discussed before. We shall discuss when the analysis has reached a finality, rather than discussing each and every opinion of the author every day. Now, moving on, the first article talks about magnetic North Pole. How is it different from geographic north and why it is drifting? Now, the magnetic North Pole has been recently observed to be drifting fast towards Russia from the Canadian Arctic position where it basically resided. Now, in detail, the Earth has two pairs of north and south poles. The geographic poles are defined by the axis around which the planet rotates and it is fixed. Now, this is your geographical meridian. This. Now this is the axis along which your Earth revolves. Therefore, this becomes your North Pole and this becomes your South Pole. Now, the Earth behaves like a giant bar magnet. This behavior defines its magnetic and north-south poles. This is your magnetic meridian and this is called your magnetic declination. A compass points towards a magnetic north. The Earth's magnetic behavior is far more complex than that of a simple bar magnet. Its north poles and south poles move around sometimes erratically. So what is the cause? The origin of the Earth's magnetism lies in its outer core, a more than 2000 kilometer of liquid iron and some other metals like nickel. Now we all know the internal structure of the Earth. You have first the crust, you have the mantle, and then you have the core, which is divided into the inner core and the outer core. Now it has been observed that the outer core is basically in liquid form, which is being here said liquid iron and some other metals like nickel, which is basically the cause of Earth's magnetism. Now this surrounds the central core or the innermost part. Liquid iron is in constant motion due to Earth's rotation and various other reasons, and this motion produces a magnetic field. Now the magnetic north pole or the south pole does not coincide with the geographical north or the south pole. Currently, the magnetic north pole is located somewhere over northern Canada, a fact which was discovered by Sir James Clark Ross. Now, what is new? Now, the rate of because of the motion of this liquid iron and for various other reasons, the magnetic pole keeps drifting every year. And this rate had been till the early 1990s 14 to 15 kilometers per year. However, of recently, in the last few years, this rate has increased to 555 kilometers per year. This is what has caused or given a shock to the scientists. And this has led the scientists to update the world magnetic model, upon which the various instruments which require calibration are based. Why is it moving faster? This is something the scientists have not fully understood with clarity. This movement is chaotic and turbulent. Now, why is this important? This movement, why are we discussing this? The entire transport sector, especially the aviation, that is the airplanes and all that, and shipping, which is the ships, depends on correctly knowing the position of magnetic north to chart out the navigation path. Similarly, it is crucial for militaries who need to know this for firing their missiles or other purposes. Knowing the magnetic north is vital for numerous civilian applications as well. The compasses that are used in modern instrumentation are much more sophisticated, digital, and more accurate. This is the reason why they need to be recalibrated to reflect this change in the magnetic north pole. Written snow. Now, there has been a recent study by ICI MOD, which is International Center for Integrated Mountain Development's Hindu Kush Himalaya Assessment, which has said that the receding glaciers in Hindu Kush underlines the need for cooperating between countries and share Himalayas. Now, this assessment, which has been carried out by ICI MOD, has revealed that more than 35% of the glaciers in the region could retreat by 2500, even if the global temperature rise is capped at 1.5 degrees, which is according to the Paris Climate Agreement. So, even if we do retain the global temperatures within 1.5 degrees Celsius, yet 35% of the glaciers could retreat by 25, and this could destabilize the hydrology. Hydrology is what? Pertaining to water of large parts of South Asia, China, and Myanmar. Now, the regions in higher altitudes tend to warm faster than the low-lying lands, so a global temperature increase of 1.5 would translate to an increase of 1.8 degrees in the Hindu Kush Himalayas. This will have a major bearing on the ice fields, which are the largest repository of permafrost outside the polar regions. Now, the region snow is a source of 10 major river systems, which are the Ganga, Indus, Brahmaputra, Mekong. Large-scale warming could drastically alter the river flows in these countries. The receding glaciers could cause a deluge in the rivers during monsoon, and etc. Moreover, the climate scientists have tried to link the subcontinent's erratic monsoons to global warming. However, the ICI MOD study often offers clues that receding glaciers might be the reason for the changing monsoon. The number of intense precipitation days and intensity of extreme precipitation have increased overall in the last 5 decades. If these trends persist, the frequency and magnitude of water-induced hazards in the Himalaya Hindu Kush region will increase. Finally, this article talks about Pope Francis's visit Pope Francis, who is the head of the Roman Catholic world, his visit to Arabia, which is the first for any pope on the land Arabia where Islam had taken birth. Now, this marks basically an acceptance of secularism or diverse faiths in the Arabian land, which is basically marked by religious extremism and which has fueled, in consequence, terrorism. So the author is saying that the first by a pope, this at a time of great strife in the Arab world, the visit was extraordinarily messy, not just by the pope, but by the host. Hosts, who are the hosts? United Arab Emirates, UAE. Now the Pope had visited this UAE at the invitation by the Crown Prince, who is Mohammed bin MBZ. His name is Mohammed bin Zayed, I suppose. Now, moreover, yeah, Crown Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, who has declared 2019 his country is year of tolerance. Now, UAE has been taking steps or launching a series of programs to promote tolerance and cultural diversity. And this has led the Pope to praise the UAE as a land that is trying to be a model of coexistence, of human brotherhood, and a meeting place among diverse civilizations and culture. For the UAE, it knows the economic benefits of diversity only too well and has turned into a land of many faiths over the decades. The visit was not just about scoring a diplomatic point, but integral to realization across the Arab world in the time of ISIS that extremism is a road to ruin. In recent years, UAE has kept pace with its changing demography to allow different religious practices and boasts of several Hindu temples and churches. His ambassador to India has written in this newspaper that his country's leadership believes that peace and prosperity are impossible unless the conditions for peaceful coexistence of all cultures and faiths exist everywhere. Now that shall all be for today. Thank you and have a very